Hello everyone, welcome back to the Standards Education Talk. My name is 𝗂𝘀𝗀𝘁𝘀 and I'll be your host for today. So today we'll be talking about adapting education in an ever-changing world. And joining us today we have Ms. Teresa Tung and Ms. 𝗂𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘁𝘀 Buntin from Hong Kong Academy. So welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is 𝗂𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 Buntin and I am the primary school assistant principal and the PYP coordinator at Hong Kong Academy. I'm also a parent at the school with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old enrolled in primary.
And great to be here. I am Teresa Tung. I am the secondary school principal. I am also a parent of children here at Hong Kong Academy. My son is 4, so he's also in the pre-K program. And then I have an almost 2-year-old who will be starting with us very soon in our play group.
Okay, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So I would like to ask the first question to 𝗂𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘀. So since you guys are from different countries, the education you received are definitely going to be different from what you have compared to the past and now, that children receive now. So would each of you mind talking about your upbringing and how do you think the world has changed, particularly to the education curriculum, and how it's different from the past?
I think for me, I'm a British expat. I grew up in Hong Kong and went through international schools here. And something that I've noted is it's not necessarily specific to Hong Kong. I do think that there's been a bit of an evolution in the world of education in the past couple decades. And now some of the things that I'm noticing, particularly with my primary school hat on, is that there's a big focus on building skills or developing skills that children can apply into different contexts, rather than focusing on the content, because the content is at our fingertips now. It's so easy to access. I noticed that we're really focusing on building a conceptual understanding and supporting children in understanding the why of what they do to really complement the how and the what, like we might have learned, more of a focus of what we learned when we were at school. And I do think that there's definitely kind of a global effort to make sure that we're working to develop diverse, equitable, inclusive, just, sustainable communities, and that we're all working together as global citizens in order to do that.
Yeah.
I think for me, so I'm Taiwanese American. I was born in Taiwan. My family immigrated to the United States when I was 6. And so I grew up going to American public schools. And I remember talking to my parents about this. They liked the idea of an American education because it's more 𝗚 in Chinese than Taiwanese education, which is very like rote memorization and so on and so forth. And I would say, growing up in the States in the public education system, it was a really enriching learning experience. And the world has changed so much since the time I was in, primary and secondary school. We think about the way that our futures have changed. So research tells us now that the average person has 14 jobs in their lifetime, and they may switch careers, like industries, multiple times. I think when I went to school, the idea that my parents had and that I kind of had is like, you go to school, you study, you get good grades, you go to a good college, you get a good job, you do that good job until you retire, and then you retire and like, that's that. But that's not the reality of how the world works anymore. We know that the world is ever more connected, it's ever more global. We know that advances in technology have changed the way that we live and work. And so the way that we have to support kids to be joyful and resilient and successful in this world changes the way that we need to educate, right? So I think building on what 𝗂𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 was talking about in terms of this focus on skills rather than content, because now you can Google anything. This focus on developing some of these aspects of well-being. If you think about, you can't really talk to kids these days without them being very aware of things like climate change, and so like, how do we help kids feel a sense of responsibility but also not feel overwhelmed in this very complex world that we're all like grappling with how to be in, is really important. So I think that the core focus of schools to help prepare kids for the future, that's still the same, but we know that the future looks really, really different now. And it's going to continue to change. Like I was saying, we've both got kids in pre-K. By the time they graduate, the world's going to look very different. So school and education really has to look at how do we help the kids learn how to learn, how to be flexible, how to be adaptive, how to know themselves, because the world keeps changing very, very quickly than the time we went to school.
Yeah. So definitely you guys talked a lot about how the world has changed, especially when it comes to equipping kids with skills, and especially the emphasis of using technology because of the amount of content that's at our fingertips. So given these differences to approach in education, and parents would definitely expect schools nowadays to better equip their children with the knowledge and skills for them to succeed. So as an educator and a parent, what do you think are the crucial skills and attributes for children to be successful nowadays?
I think I'll kind of piggyback on a word that Teresa used in what she was just sharing. She used the word adaptive. And it's this idea that we're not just adapting, we're constantly able to adapt to new situations, to apply ourselves in different contexts, apply our learning in different contexts. And I think that's really key when we think about what we hope the children will leave the school with. We want them to be flexible thinkers. We want them to be able to take what they've learned in one context and apply it into many others. For the IB, one of the big ways that we focus on doing that, as you know, we're a through school IB. We're through school IB school. And right from the get-go in pre-K, children are taught what we call approaches to learning, or ATLs. And the ATLs, they focus on 5 transdisciplinary skills that can be used to support learning in any kind of context, in any kind of subject. So we have thinking skills, we have social skills, we have self-management skills, research skills, and communication skills. And those are really kind of overarching umbrellas that we can fit most other skills into. And so we start building on those, as I say, from as young as pre-K. So our children are working on those right now. And we just continue to build on those as they get older. I think that this helps them to become flexible, collaborative communicators and apply their learning into diverse contexts and kind of prepare themselves for the world beyond school.
And I think building on that, for our students, because we are through school who go through our primary years program, they start developing these skills and dispositions right from the get-go, right? So if we take something like research skills, which Carly mentioned, which we've kind of talked about, like what does research look like these days when you've got all the knowledge of the world at your fingertips? Starting in pre-K, it's things like teaching them how to ask good questions and how to be curious and how to find sources of information. We then build on that and really explicitly teach these skills throughout the secondary curriculum in context. So, in a what we call an individuals and societies class, they may be learning how to analyze sources and figuring out, how do you discern real information from fake news, right? And these are really transferable things that are going to serve them well, not just in an academic setting of like, I'm going to do a research project, but as you move through society, as we all know, how do you know what's true and what's real? And so teaching those types of skills. But I think what's also really important is those, sometimes we think of them as non-academic skills, right? So as Carly has talked about, those skills of self-management and of collaboration. We have a huge emphasis on developing the whole child. So again, right from pre-K, like my son works on things like, how does he understand what he's feeling, right? And then that continues to build developmentally through the school. So in secondary school, through our advisory and well-being program, students are still developing their own awareness of their well-being, of their emotional state, how to then self-regulate, so that they can be, sort of adaptive and resilient in our complex world. You also asked about attributes, we really think about these like dispositions, right? So how to ensure that our students have opportunities to develop as people who are empathetic, right? Who care about others' perspectives, how to develop their sense of healthy risk-taking and being open-minded to other perspectives. So those are, in terms of attributes, some of the things that through the IB Learner Profile and through our mission, we really embed into all of the learning experiences, from pre-K all the way through to grade 12.
Yeah. So it's definitely not just purely academic per se, but it's more like some everyday skills, like for example, media literacy or emotions, and just learning how to work with each other, like collaboration, stuff like that. So I understand that Hong Kong Academy has a variety of extracurriculars, as well as utilizing the IB curriculum to provide a holistic education to students starting from younger years in primary level, from the primary years program, to secondary with the middle years program, and also the IB diploma program. First question I would like to ask is to Carly. So how does the primary years program not only nurture their skills and knowledge, but also prepare them for the challenges that they might face in secondary?
I think, Teresa's mentioned dispositions, and I think the learner profile in the IB is another way that we really go about, again, from the get-go, supporting students in becoming principled, caring communicators who can work, with a variety of others, but also apply themselves to learning new things each year. And I think when you combine those approaches to learning that we talked about with the learner profiles, we're able to support these really well-rounded humans as they continue to get older. Of course, we have a social emotional curriculum as well that we use, and it's kind of in part with our counselor who we have on team, but also we see all teachers as social emotional teachers, not just in the primary, but as they go all the way up. And I think that that's really been key in supporting us to best support the children and nurture them as they get older. Some of the things that I guess really come to mind, looping back to the approaches to learning and us preparing primary school children for a secondary education, I think because we use a transdisciplinary curriculum, something that's important to note is that everything that we teach transcends one single discipline. So you're not only learning about mathematics in mathematics class, you're not only learning about literacy in literacy class, and really it's those skills that continue to kind of build as they get older that come through at the end, whether it's you're looking at the knowledge that they've developed or the collaboration or their ability to work with others. And so self-management is key. Obviously supporting children in becoming organized somewhat by the time they finish primary school, managing their own time, becoming independent thinkers. If we look at even their social skills and communication skills, being able to work with a diverse range of others, being able to collaborate, being able to navigate social conflict in a healthy way. And then, as Teresa already alluded to, those research and thinking skills as well are kind of slowly built on over time. And again, it's the skill of being able to research rather than just having the research at your fingertips, and navigate what you need to do when you need it and access the right information at the right time.
Yeah, so definitely just social skills and just knowing what to do with research and stuff like that. And now moving on to the secondary section, I'd like to direct this question to Teresa. So how does the combination of the IB program, both the middle years program and the IB diploma program, as well as the activities offered by the school, prepare for students for their post-secondary education and future from such a young age?
Thank you. I think to build on what Carly has already talked about, because we are through IB school, there's a really natural transition. So when our students come up from downstairs, as we call it, from the PYP, they come equipped already with a lot of these skills. That said, we also have a lot of experience welcoming students and families from all different education backgrounds and transitioning them into the school. And so that, we work with all families to nurture that transition as they develop these sort of self-directed learning skills, as we think of it. I think, in the MYP and the DP, we know that in terms of future pathways, right, post-secondary options, colleges, universities, vocational, whatever that might be, that in terms of being an IB school, that's externally validated and externally recognized. Post-secondary institutions place a lot of value on that external accreditation and value of an IB education in terms of the IB diploma certificates or the IB diploma examinations that our students consistently sort of excel in as one metric of sort of success. But I think what's even not more important, but just as important to that, is that our program, all the way from PYP all the way through, really helps the students not only develop these skills, but really get to know themselves. Understand themselves, understand their strengths, understand the ways in which they bring gifts to the world and to the communities that they're part of, and how to tell their story about who they are, which is really what post-secondary institutions are looking for, right? They're looking for young people who know themselves, know what they want to do, and know how they'll contribute. And because we're a community school, our adults really get to know our learners, and so we can really guide them through the MYP, which is a very broad program, and also like their course selections in the DP to choose the sort of pathways that's going to really help prepare them for whatever they want to do next. Complementing our academic program, we've got a really robust co-curricular program, so we've got a wonderful performing arts set of offerings that we have. We have wonderful student athletes, we have student-led service groups and other ways that they contribute, which all form this really well-rounded profile. I think the other aspect, which isn't directly about the NYP or the DP, is that we're a really diverse community. We're intentionally very diverse. And that diversity comes in terms of learning strength, learning variance, cultures that we're from, nationalities that we're from. And so I think students having this really global outlook is really helpful. You know, our recent graduating class, over half the students applied to 2 or more country systems, right? So they might have applied to Canada and the UK, for example. So I think in our post-secondary counseling program, having this really global outlook is really helpful. And as we talked about at the beginning, the world is ever more connected. So young people who are able to learn across and work with people from different backgrounds and cultures is really important now and in the future.
Yeah, so that was a really great explanation for that. And now we're going to shift our focus to the current time. So we understand that for the past few years, it can be difficult for everyone. And the students previously have also mentioned something about the school providing support as well for these times. So dealing with academics and extracurriculars on top of, you know, the ever-changing situation of our pandemic can really impact their well-being, both physically and psychologically. So how has Hong Kong Academy supported their well-being?
You know, it's definitely been an interesting few years, I think, for educators and children and parents all over the world. There have been many challenges, I think, for children, for adolescents, for adults of all ages. But I think that some of the things that really stand out, particularly within primary school, are challenges in relation to social skills, a lack of opportunity to socialize, whether it was extracurricular or whether it was just at school or at playtime during recess. And opportunities for students to develop their social conflict resolution, which is a natural part of growing up. So you have a problem on the playground, how are you learning how to solve it? How are you facing small social conflicts so that you become a more resilient, a more able collaborator yourself? And I think also team sports was one of the other things that was a challenge for children to participate in, you know, particularly within Hong Kong, where we did have so many restrictions for a while. And so I think coming back, or actually, I'll start with online. When we were online, we were very mindful of the lack of social interaction that some of the children were getting from their own homes. And so we really tried to make sure that we built in social opportunities online. And so whether that was, hey, we're gonna have snack chat today, you're all gonna eat your snack online in this kind of teacher facilitated group, but where we get to chat, we get to play games, and that they're having these opportunities to kind of connect with each other. We also, of course, as always in a primary school classroom, we use lots of stories to support us talking the children through social conflict. So what happened to the children in the book? You know, what happened to the characters? How might you go about solving that problem, or what advice would you give them? And then obviously the lessons themselves, as much as possible, you're looking at breakout rooms, opportunities for children to navigate that. Coming back onto campus, play was definitely a big focus for us. We're an inquiry-based school, and so children learn through play anyway. That's what inquiry is. It's having opportunities to explore, apply your thinking, try something, try again, learn something new. And so lots of opportunities for children to do that. Targeted social skills development. Our teachers are on it, and so every recess opportunity, every lunchtime, they're there with the kids, supporting them, and even today, supporting them in navigating through some of these social conflicts that are coming up. As I mentioned earlier, all teachers are social emotional learning teachers. We have our primary school counselor, who's wonderful. She leads community circles in every classroom every week, and so she's also looking at targeted skill building, and she's modeling for teachers what they might do when she's not there in the classroom for the rest of the week. We've had self-regulation, professional development for teachers. We're running a series of parent workshops this year on the same thing and how to better support their children in working through these. We've rewritten our school well-being statement. And of course, in PE, we've done a lot of team games just to kind of help them work through what it means to be a good sportsman or good sports person, should I say, and navigate team sports as well.
Yeah, and now moving on to the secondary section, is there any support towards the secondary students? And is it any different from primary schools? And also, were there any challenges that you encountered that's relatively different than the primary section?
Yeah. I mean, so I think well-being has always been at the forefront of the way we think about a holistic education, right? And certainly there are things that continue to resonate from primary all the way through secondary, and then of course developmentally, as they become teenagers, there's different challenges that they go through as adolescents, pandemic notwithstanding, right? They go through puberty, they deal with hormones, they deal with self-image, they deal with, technology addiction, they deal with all sorts of different developmental challenges that we would sort of expect at secondary school age. So adolescence is really a time of risk-taking and of pushing boundaries and figuring out who am I and what do I want to be in the world. And so we explicitly explore these types of themes with our students in our advisory and well-being classes, sort of dedicated classes to this kind of development. And also, as Carly has kind of talked about, all of our teachers serve as mentors for our students, right? And we know different students connect with different adults in different ways. It may not be our counselor, it may be their PE teacher, it may be their math teacher that they feel really connected to. And we know that having a trusting relationship with an adult is the single strongest protective factor for young people in developing their well-being. So as a community school, we're really able to nurture that both proactively through our curriculum and responsively if we notice that there might be particular needs. And certainly the pandemic has highlighted some of these needs, right? So this sense of social isolation, the opportunities that they naturally usually would have to figure out, like, how do you have a lunchtime conversation with someone if you're disagreeing about something? We haven't been eating face to face for 3 years, So we're really like cognizant of how we might very explicitly address these things as we are all navigating through this very disruptive sort of time together. And I also think, as Carly has mentioned in terms of our parent workshops, we work really closely in partnership with our parents. Because, although we get to see the students for like more of the day sometimes than the parents do, a lot of it, especially at secondary school level, is working with parents to help them develop strategies for how to support their child's well-being. Oftentimes we get asked like, okay, I want to help my kid, but I ask them, how was school today? They go, fine. What did you learn? No, nothing. And so we work together with parents also to develop some of these strategies for how to connect with your teenager, because that's not an easy thing. And then how to support and reinforce some of the ways that we build in those protective factors and help get our kids, feeling well and being well and knowing how to be well.
Yeah, so that was really a thoughtful answer. So now moving on to that, apart from providing a holistic education and helping students with their well-being, you also strive for them to become a global citizen. So first of all, can each of you define what being a global citizen is and what is global citizenship? Let's start with Carly.
I think a global citizen is someone who cares about the world, who cares about all living things, humans included, of course, whose compassion drives them to find out more about how they can make a difference and then actually acts on what they've learned. And so we created kind of a motto for our global citizenship work, which is Inquire, Connect, Impact. And so we're looking at supporting children to, as I say, find out more about an issue that they care about, show that they have this connection or this compassion or this care towards that issue, and then make an impact and try to make a difference, take action. And so this is something that we try to build again right from the get-go. And when we think about global citizenship as a whole, it's embedded within our curriculum. And so yes, we're looking at developing strong characters through the learner profile. Yes, we're using those ATLs to support them in becoming strong, flexible thinkers and collaborators, but we're also incorporating the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals within all of our curriculum right the way through. We're working towards the Global Citizenship Diploma, which I'm sure Teresa will be able to go into a little bit more detail about. But we're all kind of working collaboratively to support them in developing their skills as global citizens.
And so, how do you define as being a global citizen and what is global citizenship? And moving on, actually connected to our next question for you, is other than having the IB diploma, which is a pathway for students to graduate from Hong Kong Academy, you also have the Global Citizen Diploma. So can you elaborate more about what the Global Citizen Diploma is and how do you particularly educate for students how to be a global citizen, but also for this diploma as well?
So I think just building on what Carly has sort of talked about, when we think about global citizenship, because there's lots of buzzwords in education, like inquiry, global citizen, like what are all these things, right? But I think ultimately it comes down to, it's not a separate thing or an additional thing from our academic and well-being program. It's kind of like the key driver, right? We want to nurture global citizens. We want to help our students figure out who they are in this global world. And when we think about citizenship, oftentimes the first thing you think of is your passport. I'm a citizen of the United States, I'm a citizen of the UK. But when we think about global citizenship, we think about, well, what are my rights and responsibilities as a citizen, as a member of our global community? So building on what Carly was saying in terms of that, inquire, that head piece of understanding the world and understanding how we're interconnected, that sort of like connecting piece, that heart piece of caring about others and wanting to connect across cultures and languages, and then that what we think of as the hands piece of that taking action, of that community engagement and giving to the community whatever gifts that you kind of bring, is the way that I would say we define global citizenship. And because HK places such a strong emphasis on this being the ultimate purpose, really, of what we're trying to help young people become in school, that's why we've chosen to offer the Global Citizen Diploma. And in fact, we're the global host of the consortium of 8 international schools across 6 continents that offer the GCD. And so it's a credential that complements the other things that our students graduate with. So all of our HK graduates graduate with a HKA diploma, which is an American-style high school diploma. Over 90% of our students opt to do the full IB diploma program, so they get the externally validated IB diploma. And then all of our students also graduate with the GCD, the Global Citizen Diploma. And the reason we offer this as an additional credential is, your very first question was like, how has education changed since the time we were in school? And we've talked already a lot about how much the world has changed. But if you look at most school sort of outcomes, it hasn't changed very much, right? So like a high school transcript, hasn't really changed since the time we were in school. It's something like a subject, English, and a grade, whether that's an A, B, C, D, E, or a 1 to 7, or whatever that might be. And it only tells the story of the students through academics and through numbers. And if what we really want to value is like, who are these young people, right? What are the things that matter to them? Then the GCD is a way for the students to showcase that. So what it is it's a portfolio-based program. So students starting in grade 9 build a digital portfolio that then stays with them to highlight, I talked about the head, hand, and heart, sort of like who they are as a global citizen in these ways. And then they also highlight different experiences that tell their story of the way that their unique global citizenship manifests. So some students' portfolio might talk about their artistic expression, or some students' portfolio might talk about their management or leadership or work experience, in addition to sort of their academics and things that they do in school. And then, so students create this portfolio and then they earn a credential, and there's 3 levels of recognition. There's a certificate level, a diploma, and a diploma with distinction level. So it's really our way of, in essence, like putting our money where our mouth is. If this is what we really value, we want a way for students to showcase that. And the tagline of the GCD, as you'll maybe see on some of the posters, is my story is more than numbers, right? Because we know these young people we work with, they're not just a 7 in English, a 5 in math, a 7 in, there's so much more than that. So the GCD is our way of honoring that and helping our students to tell their story.
So yeah, it's definitely more about showing the person of who they are as a human being and what are their skill sets, what are their talents, instead of just academically assigning a grade of whatever the system might be, of saying what they're good at specifically.
Yes.
So I've interviewed a few students from Hong Kong Academy about their school life here. So let's see what they have to say. And we'd like to ask you guys, the students, for a few questions. So would you mind introducing yourselves for a bit?
I'm Lucas Simpson. I'm a senior student at Hong Kong Academy.
I'm Minnie Davis. I'm also a senior at HKA.
Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to direct this question to Lucas. So you soon graduate from Hong Kong Academy and have been preparing a lot for your university applications and exams. So what have you done so far to prepare yourself for the application process and build up your profile?
Well, for me and all of the senior students that have been applying to university this year, we've done a lot with our university counsellor, Ms. Bumpers, and we've had that a very good support. We've had very good support from the school to help with organising our application essays, interviews, and organizing all the paperwork to go with that. And so we also have opportunities such as university fairs online from universities in the Americas, the UK, and Europe as well.
Okay, so that's a really great answer. So right now I'd like to direct this question to both of you, so you can answer in whatever order. So Lucas and Minnie, so when it comes to applying to universities, preparing for exams and doing all these activities can be really stressful, especially during the pandemic. So how do you cope and maintain your school life balance? And has the school provided any help or resources towards your well-being?
School has definitely provided us with a lot of resources. We have some excellent counselors, and we have teachers who care a lot about our workload and are very conscious of our workload and maintaining an easy-ish given the amount of workload we have, but are very conscious of making sure we're not overworked, and while making sure that we do the content we need to do the assignments we need to do, making sure that at any given time we are not overworked and not overloaded.
And I do get the impression that every student at HKA knows that they're cared for by the staff body, and that there is always that structure of care for each student available, and that you always have somebody there to help you if you need it.
Yeah, and that's a really thoughtful answer. So one more question for you guys. So with the variety of activities you participated in, what experiences do you think showcases your passion as well as your contribution towards the local and/or global community, and also demonstrates your role as a global citizen?
I think for me the most meaningful project I've done so far with the school was I've been working with the GSA. We've both been working with the GSA, which is the School's Gender Sexuality Alliance. It's a social group and a support group, and when we get around to it, action group that works for supporting young queer people and educating allies of the community. I think with that, the most fun I've had and the most meaningful project that we've done was a workshop we did with the staff and with the teachers on gender identity and pronouns and how to handle those topics with students.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that as well. And me and Minnie are both musicians, and we do a lot of stuff with the performing arts here at school. One thing that we've done recently is the annual concert called Rise, which is for charity. And so all the proceeds for the concert go towards charity. And there is also an arts auction alongside, and so using our skills as musicians for that for this sort of thing is really important to us.
Okay, so thank you so much for answering, guys, and sharing your experiences. Thank you so much, Lucas and Minnie, for sharing their school life here. So it's towards the end of our talk. So finally, is there anything else that you guys would like to add?
I think something for me, it definitely kind of lends itself to everything that Teresa has just shared, is that we very much believe that global citizenship is not an add-on to a rigorous international curriculum. We think that it's the umbrella that overarches everything. And so when we think about, yes, we want a rigorous academic opportunity for our children to develop as learners, that's part of being a global citizen, in giving them that opportunity to inquire. And so we want to grow humans who are knowledgeable, who are self-driven, who are motivated, who are engaged, who are compassionate, skilled, open-minded, flexible thinkers and doers. And really, as parents, we owe it to our children to seek out an education that gives them an opportunity to become global citizens today so that they prepare themselves for an education tomorrow.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
That was beautifully put, Carly. Yeah, and I would just, I guess, think about it in terms of both as an educator and as a parent. I think we've got such a unique community here where we really do constantly look for ways to bring our mission to life and to give the young people in our community the best possible opportunities to develop as joyful, we've got that, I think it's fourth word in our mission statement, as joyful contributing citizens now and in the future, right? And so whether that's for my son in pre-K or for the students I get to work with every day in the secondary school, I just think it's such a wonderful community to really nurture and cultivate all those things that we've talked about. So I'm really proud to be a dragonfly.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and with Carly about, you know, the way our community comes together around these things.
Yeah, so yeah, that's very well put. And so yeah, thank you so much for Ms. Teresa Tung and Ms. Carly Buntin from Hong Kong Academy for joining us today on how talking about adapting education in an ever-changing world. So thank you so much everyone for joining for our education talk for today, and see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.